Hello there friends, my name's K.Galaxia and welcome to the last day of VEDJ. Thank God for that, trust me, the feeling's mutual. Anyways, sadly the last day of VEDJ, the question is a little bit of a downer, which is a little bit disappointing. So, the question for day 30 is, what is your least favourite movie? And well, this is a difficult one to describe, so I'm going to do my best in this video, but my least favourite movie is Revenge of the Sith, by way of Attack of the Clones. So in case you didn't know, Revenge of the Sith is actually the last episode in the prequel trilogy, which is a really hard thing to say weirdly. It's a movie that's going to tie everything up. It's going to bridge us to episode 4. It's going to give us Darth Vader, it's going to give us the Rebellion, it's going to give us the Empire. It's going to make everything worth it. It's going to make the bad characters, the unnecessary scientific explanations, the racial stereotypes, Attack of the Clones. It's going to make it all worth it, right? Well, no. That's why it's my least favourite movie. But the worst part of that is, it's not entirely its fault. First off, I feel the need to start off with the strengths of Revenge of the Sith. For starters, it has a huge love for the expanded universe of Star Wars. We've got characters from different things like comics or books making cameos, and we even have the planet of Kashyyyk, which is going to be the first time I'm going to see it since that terrible, terrible holiday special. I mean, is no one going to question the fact that Lumpy straight up killed a guy? Because he did. I mean, does this look like the face of mercy to you? Speaking of lack of mercy, actually, that's another thing I think Revenge of the Sith did incredibly well, and that's the entire Order 66 sequence. The great betrayal against the Jedi Council, watching all of these great warriors, great peacekeepers just get gunned down by a huge army of clone troopers. It's just brutal, it's merciless, and I think it's really well done. And speaking of brutality and lack of mercy, the final saber fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin is actually really good, even if it has some kind of silly moments here and there.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
But honestly, one of the greatest successes for me with Revenge of the Sith is just how dark the movie actually felt. It genuinely felt like the bad guys won, like they were supposed to. The only real victory was the birth of Luke and Leia, and even then, that was a bit of a defeat with the death of Padme. But despite those strengths, there were so many weaknesses for this movie, and those weaknesses are the big things that stand out. The first, standard base one, is simply the writing. The writing is so poor.
I'm too weak. Oh, don't kill me.
It's corny, and in some cases the writing actually lessens the impact of some of the scenes. Namely the scene where we see Anakin kill a huge bunch of Jedi children, only for them to be later on referred to as younglings. Like, to me that kind of lessens the impact. If you're gonna go the whole hog and have Vader go all out and just kill children, just let him kill children, not younglings. I recognise you have an age rating to hit, but at the same time it does lessen the impact. One of my bigger gripes though was actually the transformation of Emperor Palpatine into Darth Sidious. There's no other way to describe it other than it was rushed, both in terms of his aesthetic changes as well as his motives. We all knew that Palpatine was going to turn evil, but it just kind of comes out of nowhere, just immediately. You could argue with him trying to create this gigantic war and bringing the Jedis into it was him trying to create chaos in the universe, and I do get that and I do understand that, and honestly I respect that. But at the same time it doesn't stop his transformation actually in episode 3 just being kind of weak. Also, moving back to the aesthetic transformation, that was terrible. My dream reveal for Palpatine revealing himself to be Sidious would him actually be revealing that he has been savaged by the Sith over time by abusing it. But instead what we got was Force aging. He could have had something absolutely brilliant like the main villain of Knights of the Old Republic 2, but instead he just got lightning in the face, which aged him. It was really, really shit. All this room for potential depth just for Mace Windu to deflect some lightning in his face. It's just a real letdown. Speaking of more rushed letdowns as well, I felt that Anakin's descent was incredibly rushed. While a part of me does like the idea that maybe one bad day is enough to push a Jedi over the edge straight into the side of a Sith, it felt really unnatural for the character who's going to become Darth Vader. Too much happens to Anakin in episode 3 for me to actually care about his descent. It's too much to fit in 2 hours. You've got him being used by Palpatine, you got his visions of Padme, you got him refused of becoming a Jedi Master. You have all of this all in one movie. It just didn't feel right for the character who is going to become Vader. And then you have the entire Anakin killing children thing, which I think could have been great, but in episode 3 it just felt like a really stupid, unneeded catalyst. But for me, here is where the entire Attack of the Clones thing comes in. The rushing isn't really Revenge of the Sith's fault, but more Attack of the Clones' fault. Because when you look at Attack of the Clones, in a way it feels like absolutely nothing happens, except something kinda does. You have that entire sequence where Anakin just massacres a huge bunch of Tusken Raiders in revenge for his dead mother, and I think that scene could have been so much more powerful if that had actually marked the descent of Anakin Skywalker, as opposed to everything in episode 3. But instead they just push the entire killing the Tusken Raiders thing to the side because, well, they're Tusken Raiders. They're bad people. Who cares? Ultimately, I feel kinda bad for Revenge of the Sith, mainly because it is the best of the prequel movies, but at the same time it's also probably the most disappointing to me. But one of the biggest reasons for this is because it was set up so poorly by Attack of the Clones. It's a weird one to describe, really. Although, I don't want to end this on a downer, so it has to be said that there were plenty of shows that came out around that time which actually did do a pretty decent job of setting a lot of things up. It's just that they shouldn't have to do that for the movies. Shows like The Clone Wars and Rebels are fantastically well made shows. It's just kind of a shame that they have to do all the stuff that the movies probably should have done in the first place. But still, not wanting to end this on a downer, thankfully Star Wars has gone back to the light. I mean, look at The Force Awakens, that was fantastic. And now I'm hugely excited for Episode 8, and I'm even excited for the prequel return to Rogue One, just before A New Hope. I think that's going to be brilliant. Look at me refusing to end this on a downer, simply because I love Star Wars, and though Revenge of the Sith was disappointing, Star Wars nowadays is pretty good. But anyways, that's it for today, and that is it for VEDJ. I can't believe I've actually managed to go through it without missing a day this time. That actually feels pretty good. But hey, before I call this all off, I suppose I should stick with the regular questions. So, what is your least favourite movie? Why don't you let me know down in the comments down below. And I'll see you all when I next make a video, whenever that's going to be. So, thanks for sticking with me through VEDJ, and if you haven't watched any of them, or this is your first one, then, well, there's a link to a playlist down in the description, which is going to be all of the episodes of VEDJ so far. So, that's it, I guess. I'll see you in a bit.